Hi everybody, it's Andrew here from Trident Training and Consulting with my first video, which is going to be about professional development about a topic that I love, which is giving and receiving feedback. So what I've noticed in the course of my time working, supervising teams, supervising people who supervise other people, is that we almost all say that we are very good at taking feedback if you were to ask someone directly, and yet it turns out that actually most of us are terrible at taking feedback. And we're also terrible at giving it. And so I'm going to make this quick video to give some thoughts about how to do this in a way that is effective, helpful, and makes people or create situations in which people can actually grow and develop instead of just being sort of negative and overly critical. So the analogy that I like to use, which everyone who has worked with me has heard, is feedback is a gift. So this is something that I say all the time, feedback is a gift. And what I mean by that is that when you receive a gift from somebody, you don't just throw it out. You don't look at the wrapping and say, oh, I don't like this, and then just toss it in the trash. You at least open it. You look at what's inside. Maybe if it's a clothing item, you're going to try it on first, see how it looks in the mirror, see if you like it or not, before you throw it out. And feedback is just like that. Feedback is not right just because someone else told it to us. It's not capital T truth. It's something that is someone's impression of us, and it may be relevant for us and it might not. It might be something we want to look at more and we might not, but we wouldn't throw it out without examining it. So that's what I mean by feedback is a gift. We need to at least open it and look at it and maybe try it on, play around with it a little bit before we decide that we don't want it. So let's talk about the 5 things that you can do to prepare to give somebody feedback. 1, you can have good intentions. So we give ourselves all of the outs for always having good intentions, but sometimes we don't. So if you just don't like someone, so you're looking for an opportunity to give them feedback, that is not a good intention. If you feel like, well, I just don't like the way that they did it, even though the outcome was fine, I just wouldn't do it that way, also not really a great reason to give feedback. If you feel that actually their actions really impacted others in a negative way, that's a great reason to give feedback. So make sure you're not giving feedback just for someone's own good, but because there is a relevant reason to be providing it. Number 2, ease your way in. So you don't have to walk up to someone and say, hey, you're terrible, you make really offensive comments, can you just stop, why are you such a horrible person? You might say, what did you think about the conversation we had during the meeting last week about sexism? I noticed some of the comments that you made seem to support some sexist ideas that were being discussed. And so I just wanted to give you that feedback and maybe talk to you about that. So you don't have to immediately accuse someone of something, but I find it's always helpful to come at it with a question first instead of an accusation. Number 3, try not to get emotional. I think emotions are wonderful and I bring emotions into many things that I do. However, sometimes when we're giving feedback, if we become very emotional as the giver, it can be very easy for someone to discredit us, just say that we're being too emotional, that we're being too dramatic or too whatever. And so it can be helpful for us to process our emotions and work through them prior to giving the feedback to someone. So then when we're able to give it to them, we're just able to let them know, hey, this is what happened. If you're not that impacted by the feedback, of course, this is not really an issue. But if you are feeling really impacted and you do get emotional while providing the feedback, you can also share with the person, I'm getting really emotional right now, and it's because this is impacting me so much because of what happened. Number 4, you want to choose the right time, place, and technique. So you have to think about whether or not giving the feedback in public is appropriate. Usually no. You want to think about even spaces like in your office with the door open, or in the office pantry, or while you're waiting for other people to arrive at brunch. Like, these are not great times to start giving feedback. You don't know when you might get interrupted. You don't know when someone might show up and disrupt the flow of the conversation. So thinking about that is really important. Making sure that you have plenty of time and not saying, oh, I just want to talk to you for 5 minutes, but really it is going to take 30 minutes to talk through what you want to talk to them about, and making sure that you don't have to rush somewhere so that you don't have to cut that conversation off, especially if you get into a really good conversation about the feedback you're providing. And then lastly, the technique. So you want to think about what's the best way for that person to receive feedback. So do people like to be prompted a day ahead of time so that they can prepare? Do they like to just have it told to them straight out in a meeting so that it just comes and they don't have to worry about, the anxiety of waiting for it? What does that look like? And making sure you facilitate those conversations with your staff, with your supervisors, with your friends, so that you're able to give that feedback in a way that people really hear it. And lastly, number 5, think hard before you decide to critique someone's personal traits. So telling someone that they're a horrible person, not very helpful. Telling someone, well, you're just very mean-spirited, maybe it's not very helpful. You have to think about what is the behavior that I observed, and that's what I'm giving feedback on. Now, maybe that behavior is tied to a bigger pattern that I'm observing, which maybe I could also name, but you want to start with that behavior. So was the behavior a comment that was said, something that was told to you by somebody else on the team? You observed someone being late with getting their tasks accomplished and with no explanation. What actually is that? So you want to stick to the matter that people have things to change, stick to things that people have the ability to change, not things that might feel like they're integral parts of a person. So that's the end of the first part of the video, talking about how to give feedback. Check the link below for the second part, which is going to be geared more towards how to receive feedback, which is also an integral part of this entire process. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you think.